All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode. That's right, the London Blue Podcast, also known as the World is Blue Podcast. I'm your host, Dan, along with my co-host, Nick, and we are getting into this one. We are part of the Men in Blazers Media Network, and we are talking about Chelsea's first of two preseason fixtures where they got it done 2-0 on the day against Bayer Leverkusen to say, you know what? We're champions of the world, and we're just willing to beat anybody on any pitch on any day. And at Stamford Bridge, the Chelsea faithful, they got it done with a absolutely revamped starting 11 from the Club World Cup. Plenty of players coming in. A lot of feel-good vibes here. Nick, I'm just going to drop the three-word match review right at the top because I'm just too excited after this one. We're winning everything. That's how I feel after this one. Three-word match review. Get it done.
Oh man, some days with you, I just can't. Look.
Okay, maybe we'll win 3 out of 4 trophies. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. I'll acquiesce a little.
Way to
be generous
reasonable.
with you.
Yeah, no. I went with Brazilian early signs. I think there's a lot out of this performance to like. We're going to talk about it, and look, it's a weird preseason, right? I mean, Chelsea have most of Chelsea's players have only been off for 21 days before coming back into camp on Monday. We're going to touch on the Leverkusen game, of course, the Levi Colwill injury in this one and what that means for our center back room. And then, of course, a couple of other transfer news and notes at the end of this one. But, it's a weird one because we play Leverkusen on the Friday. We play AC Milan on the Sunday. And then we have a little bit less than a full week before we're back into Premier League action already. And I know I've been telling you the entire summer how many days we have left until the season starts, Dan. By the time you're listening to this, we have 8 days left. So,
you say that, but it's also like one of the things. It feels like Christmas morning. I'm going to be very honest with you, Nick. It definitely feels like we're getting a chance to open the present, to be super excited about this Chelsea team, this Chelsea side, particularly after watching the goals come in today and going up against a team that had played 4 other senior teams, including us, and then one under 20 team, the Flamengo under 20, since mid-July to now. So this is a team in Leverkusen that is much further along in their preseason than Chelsea are at this point in time. And again, we're going to talk about a lot of it. I think the early thing to get into, though, when we talk about the 11, I just want to jump to Estevao, because that was really, really exciting in what he contributed in his appearance. I mean, 77 minutes played. He had the goal, 45 touches, 83% pass accuracy, 3 key passes there, 3 out of 4 long balls complete, 2 shots on target, 2 off target, 3 blocked. He had 3 out of 8 ground duels won. Talk to me about the vibe of getting to see Estevao play in Chelsea Blue. I mean, we saw the build-up this week on social media. The whole, what number is he going to take? Keeps the number, which is, I think, a super cool move. That's a super cool move. To say, you know what? I don't need an established number because I am my own number. I'm my own identity. Rocks it out. And then I think has a really, really fun performance that has, I think, people asking the question, are we getting a little too excited too quickly here?
Yes, we are.
Are you sure, though? Are you really sure about that?
I am sure about that because, look, I've done these Chelsea and South America specials with Nathan and Jess for the last year, and we've talked every single time about just don't do the thing that everyone is now doing once they've seen him. He is going to be an incredible player for us. That I have no doubt. Some descriptors that I would use of his performance: dynamic, impressive, joyous, and electric. He is just a magnet for the ball. I think I am super impressed with what I saw today, just after less than a week of training with the team. We have to remember that it's not like he's been, hanging around all summer and getting to know his teammates. I mean, he's just barely got announced on Monday officially with the video that got taken down and all that sort of stuff. And then, the full.
Yeah, I mean, he spent his summer helping Palmeiras advance in the Club World Cup and playing against us and scoring against us. It wasn't like he was embedded with the team like some of the other players who ended up getting a chance to get ready for the season with this side during the Club World Cup.
I mean, but this is he is him and Cole Palmer on like in proximity to each other is going to be unfair. Like it is going to be a matchup nightmare for whoever we come against. It doesn't matter how good the defense is because they're both unpredictable in what they will do. There is no set pattern of play with them. If you're a defender and your job is man marking or boxing either one of them, and I don't mean like physically like fighting boxing, but putting like a box around each player, you can only do that with one of them before you mess up your numbers. And if you have two players who are that good in unpredictable situations and who can both shoot from a variety of places, who can play passes from a variety of angles with both feet, who can both take set pieces. We saw Estevao take set pieces today, which is a very interesting thing with Cole Palmer on the field. Like there is a lot to like about what we saw from his performance today. And I mean, the last thing I'd say here is, look, some people you just know that they're going to be special. You know, I am knocking as hard as I can on wood that there is no injury that derails him, that there's nothing that gets in his way, because I truly believe we have a couple of really special players within the team. I believe Andre Santos is one of those players too, that given the right coaxing could become world-class at what they do. And so I just love the joy that was on his face today. I mean, and the crowd was just giving him all the love too, which is fantastic to see. There was a buzz every time he touched the ball. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think on social someone shared a video of Shaq and Kobe as like the Palmer and Estevao connection. That like we're talking about like 2001, 2002, 2003, some really incredible Lakers seasons there. You don't want to oversell it too much.
No.
But Nick, it does feel like it could be something very special. Again, this is against a team in preseason. You get a chance to play a little bit looser. You get a chance to play against a Leverkusen team who decides it's rugby match like half of the time. And definitely we're out for blood, it felt like at moments, because there were some tackles in this game that did not feel very friendly for a friendly.
The one on Cole Palmer where his leg goes up halfway up Palmer's shin. I was like, are you fucking serious right now? Like, you wouldn't do that in a Champions League final because you'd get a red card. Like, what are you doing in a friendly? Like, for the fact that Chelsea have only been in formal camp, and I know we have the Club World Cup, so it's not really like an app comparison, but we've only been in formal training camp for 4 days previous to this. And Leverkusen had been at it for the better part of a month. And we looked way fresher and way more fit than they did. I'd be pretty worried if I were a Leverkusen fan right now, because yes, Chelsea are talented. Yes, Chelsea have, a ton of options that are really dynamic and are playing some good football. But your team didn't even come close to making this a game at all. And that would be rough.
The stats, top line stats. We had 70% of the ball to their 30%. We had 4 big chances to their 0 big chances. We had 24 total shots to their 4 shots. Their goalkeeper had to make some very interesting saves, 7 to our 2. We had 7 corner kicks to their 4.
Dan. Fucking flecking. This guy, every time we play this guy, he does some acrobatic bullshit. I can't say. I'm glad he's in Germany now.
Could have been a pretty disgustingly good scoreline for us. Like 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
Very, very open to that. We had 14 tackles there, 8. We had 9 free kicks there, 13. 1 yellow card to there, 2. I mean, in general, this was way more comprehensive. We scored one of our 3 big chances that we had in this game. 38 touches in the opposition box there, 4. Like, just in general, very comprehensive, very put together, very much taking what we saw in that Club World Cup final and saying that was just like, this is a continuation of what we were building on. We hit the pause button and we've been able to resume the track exactly where it stopped at this point in time. We are continuing forward without any issue. I think that's probably the most important thing to take away from this game for me, is that like, we had concern that we were going to have potentially the drop off. I think there's still concern a week and a day away from Chelsea, this more us releasing this podcast, starting their Premier League season. But this gives, I think, people more hope, more excitement that there is a continuation from what Maresca was doing, what the players were doing heading into this. And I think we'll get a chance to see this on Sunday as well against AC Milan. Also good, a good litmus test for where Chelsea's fitness is.
Yeah. And look, these weird preseasons that are coming on the back of tournaments or international tournaments or whatever, there are teams who start slow, who warm up mid-September into October. There are teams that start fast and then hit road bumps because they gave too much too quickly. You don't want to be that team. You want to be the team that warms into it. Now, I think we do have a relatively favorable start to the season, so I hope Enzo Maresca is able to find and use all 5 subs for the first couple months of the season and really get his players into the right fitness mindset so that we don't have injuries, off of the amount of football that's been played. It's the number one concern I have for how Chelsea do this season is whether or not we can stay out of the physio room as a group. We'll talk obviously about an injury later in this podcast that's going to impact the entire team. But if Chelsea are able to stay relatively healthy, the depth and strength and team will be a huge asset as we get into later parts of the season. If we aren't, then it's going to be an interesting test for Maresca to see if he can work with all the ingredients in the cupboard. And so, again, great to win today. It was a really good performance, regardless of all the changes that were made and everything. But just stay healthy through these first couple months of the season. And by then, the team will be in a full flow and a full rhythm, and hopefully it won't be as susceptible.
Look, we spent a lot of time talking about Estevao, and there are a bunch of other players I think we want to get into. We're going to do that after a very quick ad break when we get back. Plenty to talk about. Obviously, getting a chance to see Jamie Gittins for the first time, Joao Hato for the first time. So plenty of things we can talk about. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, Nick, there's a host of players that we can talk about. First opportunities to see some minutes for them in Chelsea Blue, which is very, very exciting. Someone like Joao Hato coming in. We got to see your guy, Sugol, get an opportunity to get some minutes here under his belt. Jamie Gittins gets his chance here. We get to see Tosin with the armband for a little bit. Like, there's just a whole lot that you can pick out from here. Give me your top 1 or 2 that you want to spend some time talking about and call attention for the viewers and the listeners to.
I know we'll talk about the implications of Josh, when we talk about Levi, so I won't bury that as a subject, but Josh played right center back. He played in the central center back when Cucurella dropped back, and he ends up playing on the left today. I don't know.
Pretty good.
Is he any good? I don't know. Maybe. And I was getting slated by all sorts of people who were like, well, he can't do any of that. Of course he can. He's really fucking good. He's really good. And he could be a player this season. I'm not saying he's going to start every game. I'm not saying he's going to start as the left center back or the central center back or the right center back. He could be a very valuable option for this team.
Let's talk about it then, because we'll talk about then maybe Asugo and others later. But let's just talk about that in the context of the fact that we got news earlier in the week that Levi Colwill, unfortunately, very, very sad news about the fact that he had undergone a surgery for an ACL injury. I mean, he had come back for a couple of days and ends up sustaining the injury during training. Medical assessment determined that surgery was going to be the best option. The club medical department agreed. He's already had the surgery. He's in rehabilitation and recovery now. I mean, that is, if you see him before the end of the season, it's a miracle. If you see him next year, that's probably the right time frame. Absolutely kind of think takes him out of contention for the World Cup, which has got to be a hugely devastating thing for him as well, too, with the way that his season was and the rise that he was on. It has a massive implication for where Chelsea are heading from a defensive standpoint. We talked about this in our preseason predictions pod, and I think circled him as someone that we thought was critical to Chelsea's defense, the very core center back one in this organization. And really everybody else was then a next choice situation if you look at it, the only natural left-footed center back in this team, and now Benoit Badiashile. So like you have a situation where it feels a little imbalanced, though someone like Josh coming in, being able to cover multiple spots, there is a potential, particularly looking at this, really crisp pass delivery. Like the way he plays the ball forward and how quickly he does it and how he can do it under pressure. He is so, I think, refined at a very, very young age in terms of how he's able just to command back there, that I really feel more comfortable at this point in time of going into the season with him versus going out and making, I think, a splashy signing in the hopes that they're going to plug a hole and that Levi Colwill comes back a year later. And now you have this kind of weird situation. I think you can still win with Josh in the center back role in a lot of different capacities.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Josh is special, and it's not just the fact that he's a Cobham guy, which I know, apparently I'm getting.
Well, I mean, not every Cobham graduate is a great player. I think we should set the expectation here. Is like, there's a reason why Chelsea go out and sign somebody like, Jamie Gittins or Jarell Hatto. Like, not every academy graduate from Chelsea is going to make it at Chelsea. However, there are occasionally one or two or three that you see in and around the team that have risen to the level where they are international, and then like Premier League level caliber individuals who can play and contribute to Chelsea at a top level.
He's one of them. He is ridiculously special. Like, it's, a guy who's growing into his like physical stature a little bit. And so you still see him sometimes not quite know how to use his body appropriately. I think that's probably my biggest criticism right now. But he has the speed. He has the passing. You even saw today, he did the patented Trev Chalobah shoulder dip and go. So he's learning how to kind of maneuver with the ball in the right way. I mean, he is such a valuable piece for this team. He was valuable before Levi gets injured, but he's especially valuable now. I just would put out to anyone who has doubts about Josh or thinks that he's young and can't do it. Levi's 22, right? So age ain't nothing but a number for someone who is of, I think, the quality that a Josh is. Now, the question is, where do you fit him in, right? You do have senior players in front of him that will, certainly get, I think more minutes early on as the league starts and stuff like that. But you look at him and his ability to cover basically any of the positions across the pitch. I think left back may be his weakest, but could cover left back if needed. It's an incredibly valuable thing to have. And it's the passes under pressure are the ones that I think I'm like, oh man, he's taken a step up from where he was even in the Conference League last year. So, the rare cases that Leverkusen tried to press him today, no, easy. I'm going to step in. I'm going to make the right pass. I'm going to pass it back to the goalkeeper, reset. I'm not going to make a risky, stupid pass that could turn the ball over in midfield, blah, blah, blah. And I know we're spending a lot of time on him, but like, I think he is ridiculously special. And like, it goes without saying, we hope that Levi is a superhuman and comes back in 8 months and is completely healthy and raring to go for the end of the season in the World Cup. That would be an amazing story. It's just a devastating injury, and it took, I think, the wind out of a lot of our sails this week because he's also really special.
Well, and he had been such a big contributor over the summer. He had such a massive rise at the end of last season. Yeah. So I do think, and people understandably feel as if there is a massive shift there. And I think the couple of things that we would want to tie off on is one, that Enzo Maresca after the game talked about the fact that it is a priority for me to get a new center back. We'll see if we go for it, which was, I think, a little bit different from the briefs we had heard immediately after, with reporters saying that Chelsea did not have like a panic button or emergency situation they were looking to activate as it related to going out and getting a new center back. There have been conversations about someone like Mark Gahey coming back to Chelsea. I mean, that would be a natural type of solution there. Someone who knows Chelsea, knows what it's like to kind of get involved in there. Murillo is someone in previous seasons that Chelsea have looked at and kicked the tires on. Doesn't feel like that's really one. Silva from Benfica would be another one that Chelsea had looked at previously, could be an option. But both Murillo, Silva, and actually, Gahey as well too. All of them are getting very, very expensive this late in the window, right about for the season to start. Like nobody's going to be looking to cut Chelsea a deal in any way, shape, or form about getting any of these players in. And so I think you have to do a little bit of the cost analysis here, Nick, and try to figure out how critical is it going to be to bring in one of them, and where can Josh get in half a season, and can he potentially get to the point over an entire season where he's actually maybe competing at or above the level of those individuals we're looking at. And I think that's the big gamble type of conversation situation that Chelsea are going to be in.
I bet on him if I were you. I think that his talent is of that, Estevao quality, but in a different way. I think that it's of an Andre Santos quality. I think this young core that may not be starters yet, right? Whoever you want to put in that group, I think everyone has a different list probably of really young talent that's going to potentially be world class. I do believe Josh is that, and the only way we're going to find out is if he has a chance to play and prove himself. So, I would throw, the rest of the players in this. I thought that Ty had a pretty good game. I thought that Andre had a good game. Moises Caicedo is Moises Caicedo. Marc Cucurella is Marc Cucurella. Malagusa was pretty decent today, pushing into forward areas.
And I think that
his role has definitely changed when he's in the game. We play a little bit differently. Cucurella ends up coming back, and that makes, Malagusto's job a little bit easier. I also thought, people were giving a lot of shit to Liam Delap's performance. I thought he was super unlucky to not have a couple of goals in the first half, and I thought he looked better in the box than I had seen previously. And
I thought it was okay.
I thought it was good.
I think it was an okay performance. I think that he looked a little uncomfortable at times. I mean, I think the challenge is that people are going to be very quick to compare, well, Joao Pedro got a goal in this game. Joao Pedro scored again. Joao Pedro is scoring goals in the Club World Cup for fun and didn't need a bunch of time to get settled. And yes, I think Joao Pedro looks very settled at Chelsea in very quick fashion, which, also could be down to the fact he's playing with Andre Santos and he's playing with Estevao and he's getting a chance to play with his countrymen at Chelsea, which is amazing, I imagine. Like you see the Instagram photos and videos from them after and you're like, wow, that has to be fun as hell. And I think that is going to be a challenge where they are different profiles of players. And I think to compare them like apples to apples is a little difficult. Like it is, I think, an apple to orange situation between the two of them. I thought it was an okay game from Liam Delap. I think it could have been better. But again, preseason is all about fitness. It is fitness. It's getting into form. It's learning some patterns. It's feeling comfortable with other players. And everything else is secondary. And so I think if you're like diving into this and looking at like Liam Delap is never going to have a career at Chelsea Football Club, I think that maybe it's just a little too quick of a situation. Now, I think if you want to contrast that with Chelsea going to win everything, completely back that and understand that viewpoint after watching this fixture.
Yeah.
So you just have to think about how you take out information from these preseason fixtures, Nick.
Only be ridiculous when it suits the narrative that you want.
Absolutely. Correct.
That is the Dan Dormer game. I mean, I just on Joao Pedro while we're here, he looks the business. He looks the business. I mean, yes, the goal is good today. It kind of goes through a crowd and he slots it in. But he looked dangerous from when he came on. He had that long, mazy run on the right-hand side. He's just looked so good in hold-up play. I've been shocked by how good he's looked. Long ball in, landing pad, able to pass it out super quick. I don't know. Yeah, I think it is the reason that this position looks so different than last year, potentially. And it's also going to push Liam to be better. And I think that's a really, good thing because he's not going to be the number one choice probably, unless Enzo Maresca has different plans than I do, which would be just a shock. But, there's some about him. And look, I mean, I'm not sure about Gittins and how Gittins is going to contribute, but he looked pretty damn electric when he came on. Hato looked super solid and largely kind of pressed up when Reece James got in the game. Hato was the one to kind of make those forward runs and kind of pair up with Jamie Gittins, and that was kind of a fun combo. There's just a lot of good stuff to take into this. And then look, Genesis, who was my young player pick from the mailbag to look out for, he could be another one. Again, not every Cobham player or whatever, but Genesis is not every Cobham player either. He's tasty. So that one's going to be a fun one to watch.
Look, I want to dig into a few more of those. We're going to take our last ad break, get that out of the way, and we'll come back. I do want to talk a little bit more about Gittins because I have some thoughts there too. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. I thought Jamie Gittins looked really, really good in this game. And I think just how comfortable he looked on the ball. And I don't know if that's hey, I played for Dortmund and it's the Bundesliga and I know this team and I know how to play against Leverkusen. No sweat. I got it, my guys, like no issue. But I did feel as if, he didn't have a ton of touches, right? He had 13 touches the entirety of his cameo here. So it wasn't like it was a ton of match time to watch for him in Chelsea Blue. Only 1-on-1 dribble, 1 out of 2 ground duels, 1. I just thought he looked very comfortable. And I think that's the thing at this point in the season, this point in the preseason, I'm looking for is just, are you comfortable with where the game is at? Do you look like you are able to start and stop with no issue? And we talked about him in the preseason or in the preview pod about him as a player, and the scouting pods that we did with Sam was really about like how quickly does he get up to speed here. And I felt like he was doing a very good job of making the acceleration, deceleration from cold stop to start and move in very, very good moments. So I think that he looks ready to contribute. I mean, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what the starting winger situation looks like. I mean, obviously, someone like Pedro Neto is getting a little bit of rest in this one. So you start with Cole Palmer, then you see some shifting around. Estevao starts and he gets out. Like, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what our actual 11 is when we play Palace, because there are hosts of permutations for what can happen now, particularly when you take Levi Colwill out of the lineup and you free up a center back spot there. That adds a little bit of a dynamic there. We know Rob Sanchez is going to be the starting goalkeeper day one. Jorgensen didn't have a bad game. And I think many people pointed out after all the crap that he got for his haircut in some of the podcasts we did earlier in the season, he took it to note. He took it to heart and said, you know what? I'm going to fix that for everybody.
Yep. No, he might.
He hit a top save, though, in the game. I thought he had one that looked really sharp.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Gittins for me is like step over was nice. The speed looks interesting. The carries into the box, I know, is what everyone's super excited about because it puts you in a better position to have shot creating actions, right? All those sorts of things. Increasing the volume of shots and shots on target will increase the goals. We got to have 20 more Premier League goals this season than we had last season if we want to get to 80 points, in my estimation. So if he can help us do that, that's going to be a good thing. I want to know what his like extra special skill is. Does he have a cutback somewhere in his locker that completely foils one or two defenders at a time? Is he able to do something special to kind of break free from a lockdown right back, who might be pushing him wider than he wants to go? All that sort of stuff is kind of what I'm looking for. But what I like today is his first action, step over, blow by, nice little layoff to Estevao, who then, skews it way wide and probably could have made the extra pass and we would have had a goal there. But, I think it was just like simple. He's keeping it simple right now. And simple is good as you get to know your teammates. Then you start to cook and have some more fun. And I think that's going to be a really interesting thing. So that to me is what I'm going to be looking for from him for the first couple of months of the season. Is like, are you able to develop a thing? Because if you're able to develop a thing that makes you indispensable and valuable from a shot creating actions perspective, you're potentially going to have Pedro Neto and Cole Palmer. I assume Pedro Neto is going to be a starter on either one of the wings, but Pedro Neto, Cole Palmer, and one of Estevao or Jamie Gittins or, insert transfer rumor that we'll talk about in a little bit. You can only box one of those players at a time. And then if you have a Joao Pedro who's kind of running around causing chaos, like I feel like that would be a very difficult place for a defense to be. So if he's able to balance it a little bit, I think we got a little right side heavy last year.
Yeah.
And this would be a really good thing to have.
And the last one, which we've not talked about enough maybe, is the fact that we all have a lot of concern about the amount of minutes and the intensity which Moises Caicedo has to play for Chelsea. And look, Chelsea are always better at this point in time when Moises Caicedo is playing. But our guy, Sugol, had an opportunity to contribute in this match, not with a goal, but 95% pass accuracy at 42 touches, 38 out of 36. I think you were taking odds on his over-under for yellow cards and red cards this season after seeing some of the challenges he was throwing, because our guy was excited today. Like, he was excited to be playing for the Stamford Bridge faithful.
He has some real enthusiasm about him. For sure. His first action blows through the back of whoever. I think it was the guy who did the free kicks for Leverkusen, whose name escapes me. And I was like, oh boy. But then he settles in and he starts to be good. But like, he doesn't take prisoners, man. He's not afraid to get stuck in. He's not afraid to go in for a 50-50. He's not afraid to get into a leaping battle with another midfielder and come out on top. He's not afraid to drive the ball forward either. He looked good in that regard as well. I think we all had questions because we only saw him for a few minutes during the Club World Cup. It wasn't a ton where he got to play because obviously the options in front of him were plentiful. But he, again, against the tired Leverkusen in the second half. So let's contextualize this. But like, hopefully we get to see more of him on Sunday against Milan. Maybe he starts instead of Moises Caicedo. And you're able to see a guy who builds the confidence with his teammates in passing patterns to really start to make an impact, not only physically and with breakups and interceptions and some of the dirty work, but also in the passing game too. A lot of people were pumped about him and where he could potentially land. And I think it's because, the duels and the interceptions and that sort of stuff, but the accurate passes is what excites me, because that is, when we were profiling Moises Caicedo all the way, a couple of years ago, he was in like the 98th percentile for passing in his position. Like, he was so accurate that even if you tried to win the ball off of him, he has an outlet. I want to see Asugo get to that point as well, but it was a very good kind of first real look at him for an extended period of time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that rounds off all of the points of note from this preseason fixture. Again, nobody's, obviously we had the Levi Colwill news early in the week, but nobody has seemingly walked off injured in this one. So I think that's a checkbox there done. Everybody seems to be generally fit. Another checkbox there. And Chelsea won, which means that everybody who bought a ticket had a chance to celebrate Chelsea winning, which is, again, checkbox number 3. As we look ahead, though, I mean, Chelsea do have a match against AC Milan this weekend, a time that hopefully people are listening to this here. There are a couple of transfer rumors we just want to kind of hit through really quickly because they're all kind of starting to settle here. One has been the Nico Jackson conversation, mainly because Fabrizio beforehand was tweeting, in addition to hyping up LGTVs at Curry's, was that Nico Jackson and Christopher Nkunku are not expected to be in the Chelsea squad because they're expected to leave the club at this point in time. We've known about Nkunku for a very large portion of the summer, and then even heading into the summer before the Club World Cup. The fact that he contributed the way that he did is still, I think, shocking to a lot of us, but we appreciate it, and we will send him off with a very, very happy and fond farewell because he contributed to Chelsea being champions of the world. The Nico Jackson one is a little bit more interesting because Chelsea then lose the second highest kind of contributor from a goal scoring perspective over the last 2 seasons if he ends up leaving. And that could be to Newcastle. It could be to Manchester United. It could be to Bayern Munich is another team that's linked with him. Like, he is getting linked everywhere right now because the market for strikers is continuing to expand and the available top strikers is continuing to contract. And so we have this situation where Nico Jackson has become a hot property. But I think, as we've talked about with Ben, with Matt, and Chelsea do have, I think, a pretty high valuation for him, Nick, in terms of what they're expecting to receive. And it does feel like a lot of clubs are trying to see, can we bring that valuation down? And I really hope the club hold a line here and say, if you're coming in at 80 million pounds, like, we should open the door to have a conversation. If you're coming in at 60 and thinking you're going to get cut rate, don't even open the email. Just delete it and put it in the bid.
Yeah, go get Ollie Watkins. You can get Ollie for 60. Yeah, I don't think you sell Nico Jackson for anything less than 75, 80. And look, I mean, Chelsea have kind of played a gamble here, right? By leaving him out, they're signaling to interested buyers that he is available, but that might also tank a little bit of his value as well. Because if he's not in the squad, he's not contributing, he's not seen to be a firm part of the plan, then, that can take his valuation down a little bit. However, I do think that the market for strikers is going to be such that there will be multiple people who put in a bid and potentially drive that value back up to where we think it should be. And I mean, if Newcastle aren't looking at him, I don't know what they're doing. Like, I think he would be actually a terrific fit for their system and what they do. But they also have a big Isak shaped problem in their team that they need to figure out how to work with. And so, again, this bums me out. I have Nico in my away shirt from last year. I do think there's a terrific player in there. I don't know if something happened over the summer or the red cards or whatever, but it seems like it's pretty much a closed door now for him coming back. And so I hope everyone knows what they're doing.
And then maybe a couple of the other ones is just that there were other players who were not involved in the squad as well. Ben Chilwell, Raheem Sterling, Ashley Sassi, Renato Vega, all of them expected to leave in some way, shape, or form. Which, again, is not a surprise to anybody at this point in time. No. I think maybe the only one that people were potentially talking about with Levi Colwill news is like, hey, you've got Renato Vega already. Like, would you want to bring him back in? And I think there are people who are like split on that decision because it's like, hey, he also just said, F off. I want to go play somewhere else. And so can I get gone? And I mean, that kind of left probably a bad taste in some people's mouths.
Might have overplayed his hand there just a little bit. Look, I'm never opposed to players going to get their money. I'm never opposed to players going to get their playing time. It's just in moments like this where an opportunity comes back up and you've already been like, I want to leave. It's probably a pretty hard thing for him to go back to Win Stewart and go, you remember what I said I wanted to leave? That was all crazy. I was crazy. That was nuts. I don't think he's a part of it. And I think that's for a reason. And, I think the club will make swift decisions on all 6 or 7 that we have left to do. I mean, our sales, if we're able to get all the sales done that we want to do this summer, could be in excess of 325 million pounds.
Well, and we know that, there's obviously been the kind of, is this actually true or not, with the UEFA reporting around kind of the settlement on how many players Chelsea register and how quickly can Chelsea register, and like how many can you register depending upon how many you sell. And so obviously there's been a slowdown in both the Simmons news from Leipzig, because he did end up going to their final preseason match because the offer apparently has not been suitable yet. And I think Chelsea have potentially lower valuation than what Leipzig have for the player. And then there's been plenty of news. And when it comes from Ornstein, you just have to kind of agree that is legitimate news.
Yep.
He's just a guy who's plugged in, and, you can debate the accuracy of Fabrizio's "here we goes" at the moment, but the David Ornstein bomb is still one of the most, if not the most reliable tweet in the game or post in the game. He indicated that yesterday on Thursday the 7th that Chelsea have stepped up talks with Manchester United over deal to sign Garnacho from Manchester United. Thoughts, feelings, opinions, Nick?
I don't know. I don't think a lot of people are super excited about that one, but I think it's for a variety of reasons. Like there have been a lot of rumors about character stuff. There's been a lot of rumors about the way that United have treated their players. Jadon Sancho being one of those players that worked out quite well for us. There's just questions about his overall production and how he fits in the system that I think is interesting. Chicago Dimitri, good follow on Twitter if you're still around that hellhole of a platform, is more bullish, I would say, on Garnacho than a lot of people are. And he's a data guy. And so, look, I mean, part of me, as I'm reading the analysis, is like curious about what that looks like.
You're Garnacho curious at the moment is what you're telling me.
Yeah. At the very lowest level, I'd say. I mean, I'd prefer Simons, or I'd prefer obviously someone at a higher profile like Rodrigo. But if Chelsea have to dive back into the center back market, which apparently Maresca wants to do, and spend 40-50 million pounds on a center back, then it might mean that there is less, availability to do both of those signings. And then Chelsea have to figure out which one they absolutely need versus which one they just want. Now, I guess the other thing I would say about this is if Nico and Nkunku go, you probably do both because you're going to get a significant amount of money from both of those sales. Yeah. So you could probably make it all work. But the center back thing threw a wrench into, I think, a lot of this.
Well, I think the other thing is that you've seen, I think Manchester United fans, well, again, if you're not watching Manchester United fans online, I completely understand why, because why would you do that?
Why would you do that?
Absolutely just, addicted to this sport in the way that we are. But they're saying, oh, well, the Noni Madueke valuation has set the expectation for what Garnacho's price is, which I'm just going to debunk that really, really quickly for you. You have basically put the guy in the escape pod, hit the button, and sent him out into deep space. And he is still connected to the orbit of what is the Manchester United moon. But that guy's about to fly off into deep space because you're trying to have him out of your orbit as quickly as possible. So there is no way, shape, or form where 50 million pounds plus is our Garnacho price. I think 30 million is probably around the amount. And if you're looking for reasons to potentially say, hey, why would we be excited about this? I think there's some things that are hard to replicate. And that's, what are your total shots per 90? And how do you average that out? And what are your goals and assists across multiple competitions? And Garnacho in the last 2 seasons has played 108 games for Manchester United. Just take that into consideration. He played 35, almost 3,600 minutes 2 seasons ago. He played 3,600 minutes essentially last season. 2 seasons ago, he had 15 goals and assists, 10 goals, 5 assists. Last season, he had 21, stepped it up, 11 and 10. And he went from 3.36 shots per 90 2 seasons ago to 3.68. So if you're saying, hey, why should I like this? Volume shooters who can shoot on target, because again, he had basically 1.0, 1.3 shots on target per 90, puts you in a position to score and win games. And so if you're saying, hey, why should we like this? We're potentially saving Manchester United. And there's a lot to not like about it. But yeah, I think you also have to say, hey, we brought Jadon Sancho in last year. Jadon Sancho did not create a lot of noise, drama, issue, problems. And so I'm kind of thinking about hey, how much of the Garnacho thing is actually Manchester United being one of the worst places to be a professional footballer in the whole world? I mean, again, I'm not trying to say I love the deal, but I'm saying, if he's going to be a Chelsea player, we're going to find a way to support it and come up with a good narrative. So I'm going to try to craft it for you now ahead of it actually being reality.
Well, I mean, here's the other thing too about it, right? I am a firm believer that the best player in a bad environment can be a bad player, right? I do think environment is a part of the narrative around who a player is and how they're successful. Maybe he comes here and blows the doors off of it and becomes, a really interesting profile. But it has to be for a price that is in line with his current situation. And that's not going to be 55 million pounds, 30, 35, maybe, or a loan with an option that's that next year. So you're getting all of his wages off the books and everything. Like, I mean, I will absolutely support him if he's here. If he screws up when he's here, we'll know.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, we'll also know the other way, right? Like, I think that's kind of the long and short of it. But, you know, he's a young guy, and I don't pretend to, you know, I wasn't the most mature person in the world at 19, 20, 21 years old. I was, I think the word was an idiot. And so I believe that players can shape up and become a part of something. And I think if he were to come to Chelsea, he would look at that. You mentioned escape pod, like he just found the new world, you know, and, you know, is kind of out of where he was previously. So I'm not the biggest fan of the transfer personally, but I also will support him 100% if he comes. And the same thing with Xavi Simons. Like, if there's a distance in valuation there, and Chelsea are kind of just playing the odds on both these deals, see which one they can get done, that's smart. You know, do it for the price that you want and get the player that you think can fit.
Well, look, I think that covers all of the match element and also kind of where the current transfer conversations have been for Chelsea. We have a ton more in terms of content coming out next week. We'll have a AC Milan match preview. We got another Ben Jacobs pod coming out. We've got Crystal Palace match preview. I'm sure there's going to be at least one deal that gets done, either outgoing or incoming, so that we will have a chance to talk to you about that as well. And then again, the week after, Chelsea are back in it, and we've got so much more content. So don't forget to like, subscribe, make sure you're hitting us up on YouTube with those wonderful comments, leaving 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It's always appreciated. It helps people find the show, this is the time of year where we ask, if you haven't thought about it, this is the time to do it. Because this is the time people are like, man, the season's starting. I picked Chelsea as my team, which is going to sound weird to like the half of you who are international and listen to the podcast. You're like, wait a minute, why would you be picking Chelsea as your team now? There's still a lot of Americans coming to the sport for the first time, season over season over season. And so someone might be listening to this being like, oh, wow, like Chelsea, I want to be a part of that, like that cool club. They just won the Club World Cup. There's going to be some people joining the family this summer, this season, who've not thought about Chelsea before. And we're happy to welcome into the cycle here. So 5-star reviews podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Super appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe to our free weekly newsletter, London's Blue Dispatch, and get involved in our Discord community in a free or paid capacity. But until next time, Chelsea fans, that's going to do it. So you know what to do. Keep blue flag flying high.